Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our Litera Learning webinar on how you can reduce time proofreading with Contra Companion. My name is Allison Kim, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator here at Litera. Before we begin, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so in case you would like to reference back to today's topic or would like to share it with your colleagues, we will send a follow-up email within the next day that will include today's recording. If you have any questions, please send them into our chat panel, and we'll address them at the end during our Q&A. However, if we happen to run out of time, we will send a follow-up with answers post-webinar. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to our presenter, Leslie Balser, Lead Customer Adoption Specialist here at Litera.
Thanks, Allison. Like she said, my name is Leslie Balser, and I am on the customer adoption team here at Litera. And I have years of experience in both legal and technology, and a background in training, customer service, and data analytics. And I hope to use those skills to continue doing these webinars moving forward and assist with user adoption and training. With that being said, I'd like to set out a quick agenda for today and what we'll talk about. So we'll look at Contra Companion. We'll take a look at the ribbon as well as some additional features. So analyze related documents, and we'll go through the tiles. We'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So again, like Allison said, feel free to throw those in the chat, and we'll get to them if we can, and if not, we'll follow up with some answers after. And then I'll leave a slide up for some additional resources as well. So this is what our Contra Companion ribbon looks like, and depending on how it's configured in your system, it could look a little different. You could have all of these buttons, and it really is comprised of 4 main buttons, or you can have a limited amount of buttons that you'll see on your ribbon. You also see here that mine is listed as Contra Companion, but yours might be listed as proofing or proofreading. We've seen some that say review, so it really just depends again on how it's set up on your ribbon. But it's comprised of these buttons here. And so if we look, you'll see there's the Analyze button, which provides a comprehensive analysis of documents and generates a detailed report of items that may require your immediate attention. And this will usually launch a task pane on the right-hand side, so you'll see that when I get into it. There's also the Defined Term Checker button, and this provides a streamlined way for you to find all of your defined terms and definitions within your document. You'll see there's a cross-reference checker, and this provides a streamlined way for all of the, for all of your section references for your review. And then final checks. And this provides a way to find any grammatical or syntactic errors that may prevent an agreement from being sent to review. You also see there's a Show Active Drafting button, and so this will just allow you to see live drafting when you're working up your document. So with that, we'll move right over to the document itself. And again, depending on how this is configured in your system, this could either be under your Home tab or the Litera tab. So you'll see here that my Contra Companion buttons are listed under my Litera tab. And again, I'd like to start with this Analyze button here. So it'll launch a task pane on the right-hand side. And this is really where I like to spend most of my time working. You can get to some of the additional features by clicking the buttons themselves. But you can also go through each tile, which we'll do, and I'll show you, to get to all of the potential attention items or risk items that Contra Companion will flag for you. And Contra Companion is really meant as a proofreading and reviewing software. So it's designed to streamline your workflow, to really bring items to your attention so you can spend more time on your client's needs and focusing on what matters, and you can use your billable time more effectively. And we find that by using this, you can save up to 90% of your time proofreading. And we hear that a lot of people will use this for different things, so not just contracts. They'll use them for agreements, memos, letters, briefs, motions. And we hear, a lot of times that some people will use this at the end of their document lifecycle, so they'll wait to use Contra Companion until they want to finalize a document and send it out the door. And then we hear that some people will use it throughout their whole document process. So if they're collaborating or things like that. So you can use it, again, depending on your workflow at any time in your document lifecycle. So we'll start here with our defined term issues tile here. So if we look at our defined term issues, you'll see a couple of things. So you'll see here that there is an attention icon here, and that is the red triangle with an exclamation point in it. And you'll also notice that there's, this is the yellow circle with an exclamation point. So this is a more informational icon here. So Contra Companion will point out a couple of things to you, things that are potentially risks to your document, and then things they may just flag for you to take a look at and determine whether this is something you need to update or not. So if we look here at closing date, you can see that the category lists this as used and not defined. So, and it'll also list it here. The term is used, but it's not defined within the document. And you can see that there are 7 instances here as well as here that this term is used throughout your document, and you can navigate through each instance of the term within your document just by clicking the arrows here. The nice thing about this is it replaces your control find option. So instead of having to look for, finding all the terms in your document and then replacing them, you can simply just do it right here from your task pane. But in order to fix this issue of this term being used but not defined, we can add this to our definitions list. So we'll do that here. And so by adding this to your definitions list, one thing you'll notice on the right-hand side in the task pane is after a few seconds, it's usually about 6, once you address the issue that it points out to you, your task pane will automatically update and that item will fall off of your task pane. So it's no longer listed as an attention item because you've addressed the issue and fixed it within your document. If we look at this attention item here for parties, you'll see the category for this one is defined but not used. So this lets us know that the term is defined, but it's nowhere else in the document. So you can do a couple of things with this. If you're working on this document on behalf of a lawyer or someone else, you can flag this item for review. So you can click this little checkbox here and then mark it with a flag here, and then send it off to someone to ask them if they meant to include parties in the document anywhere else or if this actually just needs to be deleted from the definition section. And let's say you know that you're not going to use this term, it's at the end of your document lifecycle, you can actually come right into the definitions list and just delete it from there. Other things that the task pane will point out to you, again, these are more informational items here, but you'll see it will let you know if there's inconsistent capitalization or if a definition or defined term is not capitalized. So this instance here, you'll see bankruptcy code. So for the majority of your definitions within your document, you've capitalized both words, but this recognizes that bankruptcy was capitalized, but code was not. So again, it's just going to bring it to your attention to see if that's something that you want to address, and you would do that directly in the document. So we'll move on to the next tile, and I'd like to touch on this one briefly. So you'll see here, it's a nice view because it will list all of your definitions, and what it'll do is it'll put it in the split screen view. So it's nice because it'll leave the definition on the top, and then you can move to each instance of the term within your document. So we've heard of people having to put up their definitions list on multiple screens so that they can review their terms. We've heard of people printing them out and keeping them on their lap again so that they can go through their document and review their terms. So this sort of takes that away for you with the split screen view. If you have your definitions list on an entirely different document, one nice thing is this related button down here you'll see. So Contra Companion allows you to add an additional document. And so in this instance, it recognizes that these two documents are related. So now you'll see if we go back into the definitions list, it'll note that with this icon here. So it lets you know that this definition is from a related document. And again, it will tell you down here exactly where the definition is located. You can scroll through this list just by moving this up and down. We'll move on to names, dates, etc. So I like to think that this is a very important tile to take a look at it, and that's because we've heard of high-profile cases where a contract had the wrong name in it. Every instance of the name wasn't removed from the document, and people lose, cases that way. They lose contracts that way. Same with addresses and things like that. It can make your documents look very sloppy. So this is important to take a look at because we know that you're not starting your documents from scratch. You're potentially using an existing document or contract. People are collaborating on these. So some things that this will point out for you are, in this instance, we'll take a look at the date here. So Contra Companion recognizes that Tuesday, April 16th, is actually a Monday. So April 16th is a Monday and not a Tuesday. So Contra Companion will point that out to you. And again, you can flag this item and just determine if it was meant to be Tuesday and not Monday, if the date is wrong. But if you know that this should actually be fixed to Monday, you can come directly into your document, update this. And again, once you do that in your document, you'll see that the task pane will refresh and it will fall off of your attention item. Another thing I mentioned is that it will point out address issues. So the correct city name for zip code 53181 is Twin Lakes and not Waukesha. So something, again, it could be a typo in the zip code or a copy and paste issue, but Contra Companion is going to pick up on that and notify you so that you can address that issue. And then same with names. So like I mentioned, you can have wrong names or misspelled names throughout your document. So in this instance, for the majority of your document, you typed out Mater, Cook, and Jackson. But in this instance, it was typed as Matter, Cook, and Jackson. Probably a typo, could be an issue, but something that Contra Companion is going to point out to you so that you can address that before you send this document out. And then this, which is, again, indicated just by an informational icon here, but another date issue. So Contra Companion recognizes that the date that it's pointing out here, April 12th, is a Saturday and not a weekday. So this could be an issue. It might not be an issue, just depending on what the document is for and what that date is referring to. But Contra Companion will point that out to you just in case it needs to be addressed. So we'll move on to our numbering issues tile here. So one nice thing about Contra Companion is that it will let you know if there are things like out of order numbers or repeated numbers throughout your document. And again, you'll see a lot of this is just because these were manually typed in. So it could be typo issues, but you can see here, section 3.1 is repeated here. And it will let you know that in addition to these. So it notices that there's no A, but there's a B and a C. So it will point that out to you so that you can address that directly in your document. If we look at references here, this is our cross-reference section. So one nice thing about Contra Companion is that this is one of the tiles where you can fix the issue directly here in the task pane. So if we look at section 2.01, it lets us know that this cross-reference refers to content that can't be located in the document. So it could be a typo. We can take a look and see. But one nice thing, again, like I mentioned, is that there's an assign a new target drop down here. And this is so you can link your cross-references. So we find that a lot of people will type in cross-references and they'll also have them linked. This could potentially cause errors with your numbering if you're copying and pasting additional references in and they may be out of order if they're not linked. So you can come into your cross-reference task pane and assign these to the correct reference within your document, and you'll see that I'll do that here. We believe that this should be section 2.1, not 01, and you can just click this assign button here so that it will assign it to the correct cross-reference for you, And you'll see here that you can control click to follow the link directly to that cross-reference it's referencing. You'll also see here, again, that it recognizes that these sections are typed. So you can, again, go through each one of these and either assign all, or use the same drop-down menu that I just showed you to assign the cross-references throughout your document. Another thing that I like to point out are editing mistakes. So these are a little bit different than anything you would get from spell check, let's say. But one thing that it'll pick up for you are number discrepancies. So Contract Companion will recognize that you, in the written number, wrote 1 million, but it doesn't match the number in parentheses. So again, it's depending on which one you want to address, you can flag this and ask for clarification, or if you know that it is indeed supposed to be 1 million, you can come into your document and correct this issue. So just a nice little thing that it'll pick up for you. It also recognizes if there's missing punctuation. So in this instance here, you'll see that there's a closing bracket without an opening bracket. So again, you can come right into your document and update the issue. And these aren't huge risk items, but they do make your documents look sloppy. So just something that you want to address before sending it out for finalization. As well as inconsistent punctuation. So it recognizes that curly quotes were used more often than straight quotes. So you can use this little drop-down menu to conform all of your quotes throughout your document so that you don't have both. And then as well as spacing issues. So you get the idea of going through each tile, sort of your workflow. All of the task panes will sort of look the same, so you can address any risk or item issues within your document. But what I like to do last is this Final Checks button here. So you'll see when we click on Final Checks, it will point out, again, additional issues within your document that you might want to address before sending it out. So it recognizes bracketed text, that this is potentially a placeholder within the document that you might want to go back and review. In this instance here, it also recognizes highlighted text. So this one says, Jason, please review. So it'll take you directly to that area in the document for you to take a look at. It'll recognize repeated characters as potential placeholders. So if you use ... again, Contract Companion will point that out to you so that you can see if that issue needs to be addressed. This is where I like to point out the buttons down here at the bottom. So as you can see, your task pane is still listed here. You have your check all button here, which will do just that. It will check off every item in your task pane, and you can uncheck them. If you want to mark items as reviewed, so you look at the terms or you look at anything that's in your task pane and you know you've already taken a look at it, you've addressed it, you know that you don't need to do anything with it, what you'll do is you'll check these little boxes here and you can mark them as reviewed. If this was a longer list, you'd see these move to the bottom of the list and they're grayed out. So again, it's just a quick way to declutter what's in your task pane so that you can focus on what matters. And let's say you wanted to bring those items back to your to-do list, it's the same. You can check the boxes here and put them back on your task pane. You can flag items, so if you want someone else to take a look at it, you can click any item in the task pane and mark it with a flag. And then the same, you can uncheck those if you no longer want them flagged. This button here is really nice if you're trying to share this document with someone who is potentially not very tech savvy or still prefers to look at things on paper, which we know that happens from time to time. So this report button here will pull anything from your task pane that you have checked off and put it on a separate report. So you'll see here it generates a new document. It will let you know who the document was prepared by and when, and here are the items that you have selected in your task pane. So it'll let you know that these are editing mistakes, it'll let you know the quantity that they exist in the document, and then it gives you the category and additional notes. So you can share this, again, with anybody you see fit. You also have the ability to mark up your documents. So this button here will let you, again, place highlighted text or underlined text within your document. And then this button here, which is a really nice one, which I'll show you, it's the question mark down here. So depending on what task pane you have open, if you click the question mark button from the task pane, you'll get quick reference guides for exactly where you were in the document. So we were looking at final checks. So you can see here, it will give you topic content on final checks. So you can always refer back to this if you want more information on what you can do within that task pane. If you're stuck, you can look at tips and tricks in here. But the nice thing, too, about this is you have this button here at the bottom so that you can contact our support team at any time. So say the article wasn't enough for you and you still don't know how to proceed, you can click this button and chat with our support team, call them, email them, all that information is available to you. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. So, Allison?
Yep. We'll go on mute for just a minute to review the questions, and then we will answer them. All right, so our first question is, what do you usually say when the issue of duplicate terms shows up in the list after you add a related document?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to go back to our Analyze Tax Pane again. You'll see this will just sort of load here. And so if we look at our duplicate or defined term issues, you can see here that once we added that related document, it recognizes that there is now a duplicated term. So it'll point that out to you here. And again, it's just meant to point it out to you, so it's not going to fix the issue for you. It's up to you to determine which document you want to keep the definition on, and then you can simply delete it from the other document.
Great. And our second question is, what is the ignore button listed under defined term issues?
Yes. So again, you can see that here. And this is actually just meant to sort of reduce the amount of false positives. So if you're looking at your defined term issues and you realize that you don't want Contract Companion to pick up that term for you or flag it, you can actually just mark it with this ignore button here. And it's simply a faster way to do it. You can also do it from, if we go back, you'll see here, there's a settings option. So you can also flag them to be ignored there. But it's just a quicker way to move it to that list.
Awesome. And then our third question, does this only work for contracts?
No. So we find that some transactional practices use this, like construction and also litigators. So we have a sister tool, it's with Litigation Companion, and it works with similar sets of documents with added features for searching through citations and adding a TOA instead of a TOC.
Great. And then another question is, does this store any metadata?
That's a great question. So it does. It will store flagged items and comments. So that's important when you're finalizing your document and you're sending it out. It could potentially keep that information in there, and it could be, given to someone you didn't intend to have that information. So to get rid of that information, you should be able to click in here. So there's this hamburger icon here, and when you click on it next to categories, you can see you have the option to clear flagged and reviewed items. So I'd recommend that once you're done with your document and you're ready to finalize it and send it out, to hit that so it'll remove that information from your document.
Great. And then let me go on mute real quick. And then we do have one request. Are you able to demo the mark button again?
So here within the tax pane, you'll see I check off this item in the tax pane, and then if you click mark, what you'll see here is you can decide to insert a bullet or highlighted text or color text, and again, this will just add it directly to your document so that you can review it at a later time.
Great. And we have another question, so let me just look through the chat panel. All right, so you've received some other questions, but we're going to need some more clarification on them, so we'll include those during the follow-up afterwards. Don't worry, we'll get to your questions if you submitted them. With that said, I'd like to conclude with our final webinar for 2019. And while we continue to work on next month's webinars and also just in 2020, you can view our past sessions by checking out our archived webinars at litera.com/webinars. Thank you, Leslie, for presenting, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in.